going to be fun. We have, it's an important topic. Talk about choosing fascination over frustration, right? Yeah, so what did you hear in the comments? What did it say about today?
What I remember at this point was something that sounded so intriguing that I thought, well, I've never been to these before, but this sounds like a good one to start with.
Well, that's absolutely perfect. Yeah, so these have been going on. I don't know how many years now, but I think it's Monday through Friday. Every day from 12 to 1, they have a different speaker or performer or some sort of a lecture going on. And I've been coming here, I think this is my second or third year. I come every month and have a different topic about the overall general topic of just how do we live a more positive life. So I have something for all of you folks. It's a little card. Blank sign. This is for taking notes.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're welcome. Hey guys. You're welcome. Hello.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're just in time. I have gifts for all of you. You're very welcome. Oh, and of course, we also have pens. And... Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
This is for you. You also get a pen. This is in case you want to take any notes. In fact, there will be at one point, I'll encourage you to write something down. This is just a way to make it directly on point. Thank you so much. Well, hey, it's Kit. Good to see you. Yes, you know. Yes. Yes. I'll see you there. Well, this is a real treat. I never know who's going to be here. So this is a special treat to have all of you. And I polled some of you about what you've heard about this. I mean, you heard from her, right? What did she say about this?
I don't recall.
Basically, I'm going, you want to come?
Something like that.
Well, isn't that the way it is, though, right? We get by with a little help with our friends. It's not so much what we're doing, but it's, you know, it's the people that we're with. Really, I think that's a huge part about anything in life, right? And it's the people that we choose to do these things with. And how did you folks hear about this?
It's in the list of events.
Yeah.
And intrigued, that's...
And so I'm intrigued to know. I know some of you knew something about this, and some of you are just coming along for the ride. But what are you hoping to get out of today?
Teaching, some kind of teaching, so that I can live my life better.
That's a great one. I like that. Anyone else have anything to share?
I thought the switch from, you know, especially if you look at the whole situation of the world, the switch from frustration to fascination sounds like a really good switch.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it is a switch, and it's one of those things that if we're not conscious about it, it's going to be difficult to turn that switch. So really the first step is having an awareness for what causes frustration, and then from there we have the opportunity to go down that path of frustration some more, or maybe choose something else instead. So I figured as a way to start off today, maybe we'd start off with a little bit of magic. Everyone go, yay! I like to open up with magic because it's really one of those things that is fascinating. Magic is this fascinating thing. And it opens us up to a little bit of wonder. And let's see, what's your name?
Joanna.
Joanna. Jonas, nice to see you. Joanna, you may take a look at this dollar bill. Please tell everyone what that is.
It's like a dollar bill to me.
Seemingly.
Yeah.
I like to think that this dollar bill is a metaphor. And what's a metaphor? It's for cows to graze in. Jokes are free. No one would pay for them. I have to give them away. But this dollar bill represents us right now. You know, with whatever frustrations or fascinations, whatever positive or negative things we are experiencing in our lives, this dollar bill represents us right now. Now, if we could imagine this to be anything other than just a $1 bill, what might we imagine it to be?
I have no problem with $1 million.
With $1 million. You know what I like about you? You're dreaming big. Because if we're gonna dream, we might as well dream big. I don't think they make $1 million bill, though.
No, but you could save some rainforests.
We could certainly save some rainforest. The biggest I could go was a $100 bill.
Oh, my God.
Oh, thank you. I love your face right now.
Yeah.
You may take a look at the $100 bill. Make sure that really is what it looks like. What does it look like?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known who was on the, so I can't.
Mr. Benjamin.
Verify. And you know why he's on the $100 bill, right? He was our 100th president, right? So that's why he's on the $100. That's why Washington's on the $1 bill, right? Don't listen to me about the history lesson. But let's pay attention to this aspect of this. As real as this is only our hope, right? This is hopeful that they can, because we can't keep it that $100 bill. Because what this is just a metaphor for our hopes and dreams, all the things that we are striving for. Because in this moment, we're all just right here, starting at the same place. There's a few things we can learn here. Number one, isn't this fun? But also, you know, easy come, easy go. I think that's another one. Take the money and run. Thank you for not doing that. But I think the other important thing here is this idea of fascination. Because fascination has this natural curiosity to it, where it elicits this sense of wonder, right? This magic, it instigates this sense of wonder in us. Now, again, as a metaphor, this is, it's pointing to the ideas of whenever we ask, why this? Why me? Why now? I mean, these are the big questions, right? And in the sense of the magic trick, maybe it's just, wow, how did that happen? But in a very real sense, what today is about diving headfirst into that sense of fascination. I had an experience a number of years ago. Actually, before I tell you this story, you all have a card. You should all have a card and a pen. I invite all of you to think about a situation in your life. Actually, you don't have a pen and a card yet. This is for you. You may have one, and one of you can be involved. I invite all of you to think about a situation in your life that triggered this sense of frustration. It could be something that someone said, something that someone did. It could be a situation that didn't work out as planned. It could be the time you lost $100. It could be anything at all. Think about a frustrating situation. I invite you to write it down now in just a few words. Just a few words. I'll give you time to do this now. You're just in time.
I heard I missed. I'm trying to go $100 for 100.
I did.
I'd like to win that.
It's a great.
I just like the 100. If we're saying what we like, I mean, yeah. I just like the 100. Forget learning how to do that. If I can just show up at his place once in a while, get a free 100.
$100 bill. And isn't it frustrating that we can't just do that, right?
I've got a pocket full of ones I can loan you for a minute.
You see, and that's, I think, the frustrating thing for me is that I wish I could really do the things that I merely pretend to do. That would be really nice if it wasn't all just an illusion.
Is it time illusion though?
It's kind of an illusion. Hello, good
It's
to
a
see you. I like your pin, by the way.
I love my pen.
Yeah, hashtag positivity. So we're thinking about frustrations today, and we're thinking about how we can turn those frustrations into fascination. And I'm going to share with you folks a frustration of mine. If you're having, I see some of you are perhaps struggling with what to write down, and one of the frustrations that I have, if you can't think of anything, you know, specific, I find a lot of times my frustration comes out in the car when I'm driving. So it could be something as simple as that. But I had a situation 12 years ago. I was on tour with a band. I was their opening act with my magic act. And the band was called The Ear, the Eye, and the Arm. It was this experimental electronica band, if you could imagine that. I like to think of myself as the leg. So the ear, the eye, the arm, and the leg. Mostly because I help with a lot of the leg work, carrying equipment from the tour van to the venue, back to the van, I tend to think that's the real reason they invited me. Had nothing to do with my magic, they just wanted a roadie. But we started off in my home state of Massachusetts. And we made ourselves as far north as Burlington, Vermont, as far down south as Washington, D.C. And along the way, we had a show in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I had never been to Pittsburgh before, so I was pretty excited. I like new experiences. So we show up and we had just finished unloading all the equipment from the van into the club, and then I went back outside to go to the van to grab my suitcase. And this is where the story gets exciting. Just as I got outside, I became aware of these two street thugs that were lurking about.
You what?
Two street thugs
Oh,
who
well,
were lurking about. That's your cue to go, ooh, wow. That's right. Folks are fun. Now, my gut instinct upon seeing these street thugs was to retreat back to the safety of the club and wait for the street thugs to scamper off. Have you ever seen street thugs before? Like a real live street thug?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know how, if it's just two of them, one of you, it can be kind of scary, right? So that's what I wanted to do, go back to safety. But then I hesitated because that's just what Jonas does. Especially 12 years ago, Jonas. I thought to myself, I don't actually know that these are street thugs. That's just society. That's the media. That's
See the writing on the wall.
yeah. There's a lot of writing, pictures, or speak 1,000 words. So I ignored my fears because I didn't actually know. That was just society telling me something about these two people that I knew nothing about. I ignored my fears, and I went back to the van. And you know what happened, right? I got mugged. As soon as I got to the van, they pushed me up against the van and they mugged me. Now, I had never been mugged before, so this was all very exciting. I love new experiences. But it happened very quickly. And so before I knew, they were scampering off with my wallet. I grabbed my suitcase and I wandered back into the club just in time to be told it was time to start my set. So I walk out on stage. I'm still in a daze. I said, I was just mugged outside. And everyone just started laughing.
They're waiting for the punch.
Because they thought it was a joke, right? And the band was like, he didn't tell this joke at the last stop. It's like, no, I'm serious. It's terrible to be here. I don't want to be in Pittsburgh anymore. I want to go home. Now, part of the reason I'm telling you this story is that I realized something quite interesting. It's that if you've never been mugged before, have you ever been mugged? No, I don't recommend it.
Only by coffee.
Only you got mugged by coffee?
I mean, what else do you get served in?
Oh, okay. So it did happen quickly. And it took me a little while to process what had happened. When anything traumatic happens, it does take a little time to process. But when I did process it, I realized something quite interesting. And I realized something really interesting about what the true nature of what the muggers had just done. You see, that the muggers were actually rather nice to me. I wouldn't say they were kind, but they were nice to me. It was all in their words, because our words have power. They have the power to lift us up, or they have the power to tear us down. It's all about that narrative. And as they were mugging me, they did their part to help build me up. This is what they said to me after pushing me up against the van. They said, stay cool. Give it up. Did you catch it? It's very subtle. And the first time I heard this, really, it took me a few days to really realize what they just said. Stay cool. Give it up. You see, in order to stay cool, you have to already be cool. They thought I was a pretty cool guy. So really, they were paying their respects, right? Calling me a cool guy. So, I think you have to admit that as far as muggings go, this was probably the best possible scenario. I mean, I also survived to tell the tale. So it is a positive situation, despite the circumstances. But the other reason I'm sharing this story with you is that it really illustrates how even the most frustrating of circumstances, I mean, having your wallet stolen can be very frustrating, but even in the most frustrating of circumstances, we can learn from this. We can have a learning experience, right? And I learned something quite interesting that day in Pittsburgh. I now know the true meaning of the name Pittsburgh Steelers. High five. So it's an absurd joke. It's a true story, but it is. I did find a way to laugh about it, and I used to tell this story as one of my magic shows years ago, just as a funny little story to share in between sets. And one day, someone came up to me after the show, and he told me that he loved this Pittsburgh story. And I'm always curious to know what it is that resonates with people most. So I asked him what it was that he liked about this. And he said that if he had been in that same situation, he wouldn't have been able to find a way to laugh about it. At least that would not have been his default answer, right? This really got me curious. It really got me fascinated. Because you could take two different people and put them in the same situation. And one person can walk away from the situation frustrated and bitter. But the other person can walk away fascinated by the whole thing. Enriched by it, exactly. I encourage you now to take a look again at this little card of yours. Take a look at this trigger, at this frustration that you experienced. And think about how you responded, both in the moment, but also after the fact. And I'm curious to know, is anyone willing to share their trigger? Yes?
Yeah, because this just happened last weekend. Rick and I planned our day around going to the opera in the afternoon. And, you know, it's a little listening and nodding in our lives. And we got there and they said, oh, it's next weekend. It's not this weekend. So we decided, okay, we've got all this time. Let's go over to Twice Upon a Time and look for furniture. And we found the perfect thing, and it's in our barn now. Ta-da!
So now you have this new piece in the barn, Twice Upon a Time, one of my favorite stories too, by
Yeah,
the way.
because we had time. And very fun.
And you could have gotten mad, you could have gotten upset, right?
Well, I was. Initially, I was like, I wanted to see Madame Waterfall. But, you know, we'll see it this weekend, and we had time. Time is where it's at.
It was second time.
Yeah.
Because there's Twice Upon a Time.
Ta-da.
Well, that's a perfect example how your first response was to get frustrated, right? It was,
Yeah. I just went over and did it.
And how long did it take you to flip that switch?
Oh,
Not long. That's great. And a lot of times, all it takes, now my key objective about today really is to focus on, again, this awareness. And I find that for me, I don't really know what's going to frustrate me until I get into the situation. And once I am in that situation, then I'll be able to look ahead so that I can sort of like pre-plan ahead, like, oh, you know, next month I'm going to be doing this. That's one of my triggers, or it could potentially lead into one of my triggers. And there's certain practices that we can do to really prepare ourselves. And there's a number of things we can do, whether it's deep breathing or exercises of some kind, but they're just ways to even just being aware, so we can choose more quickly the response of fascination. That was a perfect example of this. Thank you very much for sharing.
full of them.
Because life is fascinating, right? Yeah. Right? Does anyone else have an example that they're willing to share, or they feel open to sharing?
I can share this, and I was thinking I hadn't found a solution, but it's not true.
Okay.
So I've been trying to get my slate roof fixed for a year. And I'll send out messages to roofers. And the most recent message I sent was saying, is there any bribe that would get you to answer my text? Just to tell me that you got it. I said, can I give you brownies or hot soup? Or can I hold the ladder for you? No answer. So I thought, okay, this is not working. So I decided to use the front porch forum and put out a thing saying, does anybody know a roofer who will answer anything? And somebody, you know, who I was meeting for some other reason must have read front porch forum, she said, I think I have somebody, you know, and he met me yesterday and anyway, and he was really nice, and he says, I don't do this as much, but I am good at it. Great.
It worked out.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Very nice, very nice. Thank
Yeah.
you very much for sharing that. You know what I really like about this too is how you initially said you didn't know what the answer was, but then you thought about it and you realized you did have the answer. And what was your solution?
Was trying another angle.
Yeah, trying it from another way, having this other perspective to approach this situation. So oftentimes we get so stuck in having this one idea, like, oh no, I'm supposed to go to the opera this weekend. Like, oh no, I'm supposed to just call or text, you know, these people they're supposed to respond. Well,
It's not happening.
yeah, especially a lot of times with contractors. I don't know what it is. they just
It is.
it's something that is often the case. Even well-meaning, you know, that I don't think they realize what they're doing when they do this. Some of them do. I think some of them do, but I think many of them they're just too swamped and they need like an assistant to be answering these calls. But when we get stuck in that one idea, you know, that's when the frustration really happens. What did I hear said? So I listen to a podcast every day. It's called Being Well by Dr. Rick Hansen. And I started listening to podcasts because I do a lot of driving. So I just pop a podcast on and I get to listen to all these positive things. But I specifically listen to his because it focuses on being well, mental health, emotional health, physical health. And one of the guests that was on, I forget the name of the guest, but one of the things that she recommended, she said, you wouldn't wear a t-shirt and shorts in February in Chicago. You wouldn't do that because it's February in Chicago, right? And the same thing is true when we're trying to deal with certain situations. Like, you know, we wouldn't keep trying to do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different things to happen. No, that's like wearing shorts and flip-flops in Chicago in February, right? So the idea is that we have to approach these sort of situations in another way. Put on a coat if you're in Chicago, but also there was another thing that you had done. So you had tried it from another way, but what was the following thing that connected you to that person?
Reaching out.
Reaching out to other people, right? So that is a huge part of it. One of my favorite sayings is whenever I do a magic trick, people often say, oh, how'd you do it? Together. We did it together. What's that?
Oh, that's where it's just
Oh, yeah, they always ask, how did you do it?
orchestra.
Yeah, so we did it all together, right? It's all done with people. So the idea is if we're having these frustrations, we don't have to do it alone. We can seek the people within our sphere of experience, whether it's a friend, family member, mentor, mentee, whatever the case may be. We don't have to do it alone. So try other ways, and specifically seeking out other people in the community. So I really like that part of your story. I'm glad it worked out. Was this recently?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know a roofer, do you?
I don't know a roofer, no. Does anyone know a roofer?
That's tough.
They're very busy right now.
Yeah, I actually do find somebody who would look at it.
I knew the
And
carpenter.
then, yeah.
I want to talk with you too. Okay.
All right, so we know some roofers,
Yeah.
and you know a carpenter. This is perfect. We're connecting. This is great. That's one of my favorite things about these talks is that you never know who's going to come, who's going to be able to help each other out.
I want to hear some of the others.
Oh yeah. So does anyone else have anything they'd be willing to share? A frustrating situation?
I'm still in it.
You're still in it. So with
It's with somebody that took advantage of me and just did something, not what I asked, twice. And then delivered something that was inadequate, turned out to be inadequate, that I let him install, but higher up. And of course, we tried it out with a hose to see if it would cover the place that was supposed to be covered. And of course it did, but then when the wind blew, it didn't. And it was really stupid. And it was a very stupid situation, and I called him up and I tried to be moderate. and kind of humorous. But he did it so fast. He said, I have to go to my son's soccer game. And he was in and out, and I paid him, which was stupid.
So you paid him up front for it?
Because, no, when he brought it and installed it.
And you didn't know that it wasn't what you wanted?
Well, I wasn't sure if it would work or not. And then afterwards I discovered a way. I just can't find a person to fix what it needs.
What kind of a contractor was this?
This was a carpenter that was doing work on the house beside me, so I figured, well, he knows the person there, who knows him. I could say something to him about that guy, but I haven't done that yet.
What was it that he had installed that didn't work out? What was
It was, he boasted about how he had this one piece of sheet metal that fit. Well, it didn't quite fit. It wasn't quite large enough to cover the whole rental. But anyway, it's just very frustrating. And so now I'm hunting for another carpenter to do something with it. And I have an idea what to do with it. But I can't find anybody. Everybody wants bigger jobs. And this is a small job, and they're all busy.
I've got a wonderful carpenter.
But he's probably busy, right?
Well, he's busy doing something at my house, but if it was small, he might be able to fit it in.
Okay. Where are you?
I'm on Wentastic Drive.
Oh, okay. And I'm in Brookline.
Yeah. He's absolutely superb and does not charge nearly as much as many.
Aren't you
Yeah.
kind?
But we'll talk after.
Well, I have to leave early,
Oh,
but I'll give you my
good. Give me your card. That would be great.
I'm getting chills right now because, I mean, we all came into this situation, some with preconceived notions, some without any idea what was going to happen. But now we're finding these solutions to these different connections.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this concept that one of the other like podcasts and emails. Here's the thing. I find all these positive things, and I just surround myself with them, whether through podcasts, emails, videos, just people, these events. I surround myself with it because we tend to be what we surround ourselves with. And one of the things that this gentleman, his name is Brendan Burchard, he wrote a book called High Performance Habits. It was the ‑1 business book on Amazon for a little while. And it came out like a year or two ago. But one of his ideas is, and he came, it was his mentor gave him this idea years ago. He was going through a little bit of a slump, trying to figure out what he was going to do about a certain situation. And his mentor said, get tickets. Get tickets. And oh yeah. So like going to a concert, going to the opera, going to an art gallery, go to a networking event, come to a brown bag lunch series. The idea is that to just get yourself out of the house, get yourself out of your routine, meet new people.
Yeah.
And the idea is that we're going to make these connections and get ideas and get inspired in ways that we never could have seen just staying in our little circle. And I'm getting chills again because this is a perfect example of this at play. So I absolutely love that idea. I'm glad you're going to the opera.
I'd like to add something to that,
Go ahead.
which kind of goes with my frustration story, but just hearing all of this too.
Can you
So,
speak up a little bit?
yes, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have been frustrated about technology, trying to start up an online business, doing technological marketing, putting pieces of the puzzle together through technology, and there are like 10 learning curves that I'm on right now, and I'm pretty much at the flat line, just about to, go up on each learning curve, just taking in information. And it's very frustrating if you don't have one thing connecting this to that. If that connection isn't made correctly, it doesn't work. And then I'm losing clients who I didn't even know I had because they're trying to connect to something that's not connecting. And I've been reaching out for help, but I keep saying to myself, why isn't this working? You know, and I get frustrated. Why isn't this working? I'm doing what I'm supposed to do or what I think I'm supposed to do, but in all actuality, I'm not. There's something I'm not doing that's working.
Yeah.
And so reaching out to more and more people is not only helping me to understand it, but it's increasing my network of people who are part of my support system. I have certain companies on speed dial that I talk to every day now, and they're my buds. I'm starting to know them by name. There's like, 5 different people in one company who I tend to talk with, and I know them, and we're getting to know each other. And this whole idea of, coming into a situation and feeling like each one of us has a private problem, but as soon as you say it out loud, like I walked into the library and somebody I knew was like, how are you? And I said, oh, I'm really frustrated because technology, I can't make things work. And she said, well, what is it that's not working? And ordinarily, I'm not going to walk into the library to someone who's working and busy and tell them my problem. But because she asked and I told her, I now have a solution I didn't have before, which was her saying, I can deal with that problem. I will come and help you in 2 weeks when I have time with that problem. And so reaching out and saying, I have a problem, this is my problem, actually is the way to find the solution, as opposed to feeling like we need to know everything ourselves and figure it out ourselves and get all frustrated that it's not working because we're not able to figure it all out.
Right. It just occurs to me that you're saying that too much. You're saying it's not working yet.
It's not working yet.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, so it's not working yet. Up until now, it hasn't worked. I like that.
And it is working. All the puzzle pieces are starting to work. One by one.
And I can vouch for that because I'm on your email list.
And it's starting to work.
I've been getting the email just fine. I don't know if other folks, but it's working on my end.
Yeah. It feels good to have things work, but it also felt enlightening to have things not work and realize that it's okay to have things not work. My life will still continue. I still will have clients coming in later. I am, not only will I get through this, but I'm enriched by the collective support system that I now have, that I didn't have before because I needed so much help. I know so many more people who are helpful.
Thank you for sharing.
And I wanted to say something about this carpentry thing. So I have a carpenter friend who recently was talking about how frustrating it is for a lot of people that you don't have to legally have anything, license or anything, to do a lot of things in the state of Vermont, and that has pluses and minuses. And one of the minuses is people can hang up their shingle and say, I'm a carpenter, and they can do things that are not that skilled, and tell you that they can do it in a certain amount of time and for a certain amount of money, and it comes out not being a great project, the outcome. So sometimes finding someone who really has a good reputation and takes says that they're going to take this much time and it sounds longer than someone else, but it's more realistic, and says it's going to cost this much, and that's actually how much it's going to cost, as opposed to saying it's less and then it comes out more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
The
worthwhile.
thing is, they don't respond at all.
You're hitting up the wrong people, I think. I think between the two of us, we'll give you a couple of leads.
He actually gave us money back. He overquoted, and we got a considerable amount back. Very ethical.
Just pass it down this way, don't
Yeah.
give it up.
Rick, can you hand that down the road?
On that, I've experienced a similar frustration in the sense that I've been a magician pretty much all of my life, and one of the frustrations in the magic world is you don't need to have a license to be a magician. And one of the problems with that is if someone sees a bad magician, they think, oh, all magicians are terrible. You know, you know, in the sense you have an experience with a bad carpenter, you might not necessarily say, oh, all carpenters are bad. You're just not reaching out to the right ones, right? But for some reason in the magic world, there's so many people turned off to magicians. I've had situations where I would show up to a gig. It was actually when was it? It was 2009. I was booked to do a tour of all the senior centers in Springfield, Massachusetts. They call them the Golden Age clubs. So for like, it was a 4-month contract. It was a lot of clubs I was doing. And I showed up to this one club. This was in downtown. And they were all playing bingo. And if there's anything that I've learned in life, you don't interrupt a bunch of seniors playing bingo. Especially to do a magic show. It's just not what they want. But I showed them the contract. I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be here. And so they broke down all the bingo tables, and this one woman is just scowling at me. And she said to me, how long is this going to take? I said, oh, you know, I'm booked for an hour, but, you know, if no one's interacting with the show, it'll probably be a shorter show. And just trying to, you know, give her some hope that it's not going to take forever. And she said, it'll be a short show. Now, to be sure, though, you know, not everyone was like that. It was just her especially, and her and her friends. But there were some people who were in the front row who were really wanted to see the show, right? They were excited. So I aligned myself with those allies, and I gave them the best show that I could. But something kind of interesting started happening. As I did my show, the woman in the back, all of a sudden, she started to open up a little bit. She started to smile. She started to laugh. And then, by my last trick, the last piece of my show, she willingly volunteered to help. Which, I don't go in trying to convert people, because for my own piece, I'm just going to be me. But in this case, I completely won her over. It's like that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I don't know exactly which trick I did that won her over. But at the end of the show, what I would do, of course, I would go around thanking everyone for coming. And when I got to her, she gave me one of the best compliments I've ever gotten. And she said this. She said, Jonas, I don't like magicians. But I like you. Which I count that as, you know, I goosebumps again. Because here was someone who was turned off to magic. Maybe they've had bad experiences with unlicensed magicians. We're all unlicensed, but perhaps ones who don't take their craft seriously. But I was able to show her that we're not all bad. Not all carpenters are bad. You know?
Right. Oh, yeah.
So I'm hoping that between some of the contacts, you're able to finally solve this issue of yours. You're very welcome. Oh, she has something
Oh,
for you.
thank you.
So I'm interested to know, there's a game that I found in a book. It's a 1913 book by Eleanor H. Porter called Pollyanna. Have you heard of this book?
No, I just love it. It's not a game club.
Yeah, so now this book became, or this character in this book became so popular that the name Pollyanna has become synonymous with this eternal optimist.
Yeah.
Which certainly can be expressed in a negative sense of just ignoring reality and just wearing rose-colored glasses. That's certainly the far extreme. But I think that if we approach this game that I'm going to share with you from this book, it really has a way to really open us up to staying fascinated rather than frustrated with our circumstances. And the game is simply this. It's called the Glad Game. And it's easier to talk about the Glad Game than to implement the Glad Game. However, I had a recent experience just this past weekend that really tested my own fascination in the face of frustration. I'll share those with you as I explain this game. So, in the book, Pollyanna talks about the Glad Game. And the idea is to find something to be glad about regardless of the circumstances, right? So, opera is next week. Carpenter is terrible. You know, so whatever the situation may be, find something to be glad about. And in the book, she talked about how the way that she practiced the glad game. The first time she played it, her father ordered a doll for her. But when the company sent the order in, they didn't send a doll, they sent a pair of crutches. Completely different than what they had ordered, you know? You order one thing, you get something completely different. And she said that it's just when things don't go as expected. That's when we have to play the glad game. So her friend, who she was explaining this story to, she was like, well, what's to be glad about a pair of crutches? You wanted a doll. And there could be many answers to this, I suppose, but the answer that she settled on, Pollyanna just said, I'm just glad I didn't need the crutches. Because there are people who, they can't use their legs, you know, where they're injured and they're hurt. She was just glad she was okay. It's a simple example, but I have my own example. Just this past weekend, it was Sunday night. I was on an airplane coming back from a conference. I was in Vegas, and I had 2 flights because I had a connecting flight, and I was on my connecting flight when I suddenly realized I left my Kindle in the backseat pocket of the plane, of the first plane. And it's an expensive loss. I mean, these are, it's an older model, but it's still probably worth 50, 60 bucks online. I was like, but there was literally nothing I could do. I mean, I'm on an airplane. Like, I can't even call the airline, because, you know, so I just, okay. I remember the wise words of, I mean, if you've ever seen the movie, when I was a kid, it came out, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was just one scene where Raphael, the turtle, lost one of his weapons, and the great Master Splinter said, then it is gone. Then it is gone. So the idea is just, it's gone, so it's gone. So I practiced that, you know. But then when I got home, I was settling back into my office, putting things away, because I was on this long trip, and I was looking for my credit card to put away, because there's just one credit card that I use when I travel. I couldn't find it, and then I realized I was using my Kindle case as a wallet. Because when I travel, I don't like to keep all my stuff in one wallet just in case it gets stolen or lost. I have a backup. I was using that Kindle case. So not only did I lose a Kindle, but I lost a credit card. So now I had to cancel a credit card. But then I realized my heart sank again. Wait a minute. I was using it as a wallet. I had $200 bills in that Kindle case. So not only did I lose this expensive device, I lost a credit card, I lost $200. This was frustrating, to say the least. And here I am, coming back from this conference where I was delivering this same talk. How do we choose fascination over frustration? And here I am in the middle of this frustrating situation where my first response was not very fascinating. Or maybe it was fascinating to people who know me. But then I remembered, okay, the glad game. How can I find something to be glad about this? Okay, first thing, I lost a Kindle. What can I be glad about? Well, it was an older model. I was thinking about getting a newer model anyway. Okay, I'm glad that I'm going to get a new one. First one, okay, credit card. What is there to be glad about losing a credit card? Well, again, there could be many answers. The answer I settled on was, well, how many credit cards do we really need anyway? That's one less credit card to worry about. I called them, canceled the card, and now I've sort of consolidated my finances a little bit, so I can be a little more financially responsible. Okay, so that's a good thing. Losing $200. This was a little harder. This one took me probably a good half hour or so to really figure out what can be good about this, because I knew what I was going to do with that money. I knew what that money was going to be used for. Now, it can't be used for that anymore. But I found something to be glad about. And I encourage you to think about, if this was you, what would your answer be? I'm going to share my answer with you. My answer was this. I'm just glad that I'm gainfully employed, so this loss can be replaced. It doesn't negate the fact that there was a big loss, but I'm glad that I can replace it because I have a job and I can take it. For a lot of people, that's a week's pay. For a lot of people, that's their life savings. So to a lot of people, that would be everything. This was just a lot of money, but it could have been worse. So those were the answers that I had given. What I'm curious to know is, if we were to play this game with all of you, whether with the trigger that you wrote down, or maybe something else that you thought about as this presentation was going on.
Maybe the person who found it needed it more than I did.
That's a great one. Because I suppose if someone finds it, they have two options: report it, to the lost and found, or maybe someone else
Keep it
needs it.
and pay some bills.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one. Sort of like a pay it forward, being forced to pay it forward, right? That's a good one. Does anyone else have any, like a frustrating situation that, if we were to play the glad game?
Yeah, mine is along the same line of thinking about how it's helpful for somebody else.
Yeah.
Like in my example earlier of feeling frustrated about the technology stuff, I felt stupid and I didn't understand these things, but the more I reached out for help, the more I realized that these were things that were glitches that weren't working, and that I was pointing that out to this company, and they were going to bring it to their meetings and try and fix it. So I felt like I was helpful. So it brought out the good in me, that I got frustrated and I had to reach out for help. It brought out the good in me for being helpful. Just like if I had lost $200 and looked at it like I was being helpful. Yeah.
Sorry. I have to leave.
Thank you so much for
very
coming. I'm so happy you were here. Thank you. So that's a perfect example of a frustrating situation, but you found something to be glad about, not only for yourself, but for the others that you were interacting with. That's a perfect example. Thank you. Anyone else have any examples of something frustrating that, well, you shared one at the beginning, right? You were frustrated that you were...
Oh, we came early.
Yeah.
Actually, something happened to us on a vacation. We arrived at our destination after traveling for, I don't know, 8, 10 hours, something like that. So we were pretty, exhausted, and we went up to a place in town to grab a bite to eat because we were hungry, and then we were just going to pack. And left our wallet on the table, and we realized it, and came back, and we had all our cash for our vacation and cards. I'm sorry, that what? Our cash for our vacation that we, got ready ahead. So
You
for
had just gotten
the
there.
first day of our vacation. But, we weren't hurt. We had incredible help and support from the landlord. We were renting a place from somebody in town. They couldn't have been nicer. It took several days to get everything all squared away, but we did. And with their help, and I just have such a warm feeling from that whole experience in the town. But we were fine. It got handled, and I was just, injury is the scary thing for me. I think I'd have a hard time getting over that. But yeah, what happened?
And you were okay.
We were okay, and we've learned how to handle our vacations in a different manner now. Our vacation in a different,
That's a perfect.
it's similar to yours. Yours made me think of it because there's really nothing you can do. You can stare at that table and ask people if they've seen it any
That's-
number of times, but
You're going to get the
it's
same
gone.
answer.
You just need to wrap your mind around
Then
it and
it
go
just
forward.
gone.
Yeah, and share and connect. Yeah.
That's a great example.
I'll say too that there are some things that have happened that I've lost that I still hang on to. But what that does for me is it makes me realize how much attachment I have for that or what it stands for. And that brings up more of my heart, which is a good thing too.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I was planning on retiring in June, at the end of June, that was the plan. And on December 11th last year, I fell down at work and crashed into the beam across the stairs. I mean, it really went, and I had a concussion.
Oh.
And I went home, and so two things happened. So, you know, that didn't look really good at all. I wasn't terribly hurt, but I wasn't functional. So I lay on the sofa, which is not something I usually do. Got to watch more TV with my husband than I ever do. It was really quite an experience, because usually he's wishing I would sit down. And, but not only that, but I was on workers' comp because I'd fallen at work. So I had 3 months of paid leave. And during that time, oh, and also April was going to be a really heavy-duty week, because that was a big event that I do in April, but I couldn't. And meanwhile, they worked out somebody else to do the job. So I actually retired 6 months early. And it all worked out. I mean, it was phenomenal. I mean, and if I hadn't fallen, which I certainly didn't do on purpose, but I would have been working like a fiend in April, because that's what I do. It would have been like the ultimate, you know, it has to have everything in place, so forth. And I had to quiet, you know. It was really one of those things, like, whoa.
And you're okay today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another great example of this, like, frustrating that you got hurt, awful, right? It's so, Fascination doesn't deny that negative things will happen in our lives, but it's deciding what are we going to focus on. Are we going to be frustrated by this, that we can't do our work now? Or are we going to find the positive? You got to spend more time with your husband. You got to relax a lot sooner, right? So that's great. That you were able to see it that way. Some people, I have some friends who they are workaholics, where they just probably would have destroyed their spirit if they couldn't do their work. But I'm so happy that you were able to see it from another perspective and really embrace it and own it.
It's really been fun, actually. I think I've been more willing to see what happens instead of thinking that I have to plan it all. And so I'll tell you one other. It's that we've been looking for a house and got a place and had the inspection done, and there was all the stuff that needs to be done. But we were like, it was decided that would be where we would go. And then the day before or something, I happened to look for just whatever, and there was another house that was like a totally different story. And I just happened to see it, you know, and it's like so much more happy. You know, the other house, I just kept trying to figure out how it would work, you know, that kind of thing. Well, I could probably do this. I could probably figure that. You know, and so it's like perfect. But at the time, it was like, oh, I can't believe that has to be fixed. The windows, I wouldn't believe it. The little latches that hold the windows in, because they're the flip open windows, they were broken off in this house that we were looking at. Every little latch.
That's a lot of work.
So weird. So anyway, it was great. I am so glad those latches, because they were the thing that kept us from moving forward. Yeah.
You found an even better, more perfect solution. Because
Yeah, and it's interesting, because I wasn't looking for that other house. That wasn't the concept. I mean, that's one of the things. I'm getting more time with Diana these days. And it's like, you know, it's just because life has changed.
and it's all done with people.
Yeah.
So often we forget that. We forget to reach out to our friends or family, the people that matter, because we get so wrapped up in those, either in our work or these little different concepts. And now we get to spend more time with each other at the opera.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I do know people talk about polyandry. I mean, You sometimes get that from somebody. Oh, you're just being a Pollyanna. It's like,
You could say
no.
thank you.
Yeah.
Now when someone says that, you say thank you.
Because it's better than getting frustrated, getting stuck in a rut. Just being aware of the time, we have a few minutes left. I would like to show you as a sort of like if we were to put a cap on this, sort of to tie everything together, literally tie everything together with a rope. If I were to ask you, Rick, if I were to ask you to tie a knot in the rope, how would you do it?
You mean
How would you tie a knot? If you could tie a knot in the rope, yes, please, thank you. Bippity boppity boo, that's perfect. Very nice job, thank you very much. Give him a big hand. Thank you for showing us the ropes, that was very nice. So that's one way to tie a knot, right? But this whole thing about being fascinated, being curious, what are some other ways to tie knots in a rope? And when I ask that question, I mean, usually, I mean that's how I tie a knot, of course, but there's other ways to tie knots. And when I asked this question of my musician friends, these are some of the answers that I got. This is called the U knot, because it looks like the letter U. You bring a loop over one end through that loop, through that other loop, so now there's a loop over each wrist without letting go of the ends. You pull the loops off, and it forms a knot in the rope. That's another way to tie a knot in a rope. Another way that we could tie a knot in a rope is, this is something that one of my other friends showed me. This is called the fast knot, and he calls this the fast knot.
Oh, wow.
It is.
Because if we blink, we're going to miss it. Have you ever seen this knot before?
No.
Neither have I. It's too quick. I've never once seen it. You know, I try and keep an eye out for it, but it's always just way too quick for me. And this is one that I just learned at the Magic Conference, because I was asking this one guy. His name is Tim Wise. He's a wise guy. He really is a wise guy. He plays a genie in one of his magic shows, but he calls this the helicopter knot. And I just learned this, so I might not get it on the first try, but it starts off like a helicopter. There it is. First try. Oh, thank you. So that's the helicopter knot. Now I showed you these different knots, so I could show you my absolute favorite knot. And this is called the magic knot. Everyone go, ooh. I really do like you folks. And before I go any further, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. And thank you for being, I'm so happy you're here, because you all brought something special to this whole time. So thank you very much. So the magic knot, we need not only the white rope, but we also need the red rope. So to tie the magic knot, all we have to do is sort of tie or sort of twist the red rope around the white rope. And when we do that, it kind of looks like a little bit of a candy cane, right? So all we have to do is, of course, say the magic words. What are the magic words?
Abracadabra.
Yeah, that's right. It's Shazam, abracadabra. That's exactly right. It's a good thing you were both here. When we do that just right, Shazam, abracadabra.
Oh. Oh, no. No, that's fake.
You see, that's the thing that I often get. Whenever I do this, they say one of two things. It's either, how did you do that? Or they're like, it's fake, right? So I'll tell you what, I'll take the knot off. I'll let you take a look at the knot. Make sure that knot is not a knot. Yes.
Is what?
Make sure that it is, in fact, a real knot. There should be no beginning and no end, because it's just a knot.
Okay.
Right? But the real question is not so much. I just got that. That's funny. Not how it's done, but really, why are we doing this? And that's.
Hey.
I like you so much. Thank you. You should come to all of these. I just love your face. And I think the real reason that I do this, again, goes back to fascination. Because it's so fascinating. Because it opens up that sense of wonder, which is, again, pointing to when we wonder, why this? Why me? Why now? Why this, right?
Why not?
Why not? I am so happy right now. Exactly, why not? Because anytime we meet someone, a little part of that person becomes a part of who we are, which is really why we have to be careful who we hang out with. And as far as all of you go, I'm so glad we were able to hang out today. Because again, you all shared something very special today. And every time we meet someone, that truly is true. Truly is true. A little part of them becomes a part of who we are. And this doesn't just travel to the rope.
Oh, jeepers.
It becomes the rope.
No, this is not.
Come on.
You folks have been an absolute joy to be with. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Delightful. Thank you,
You're
Joe.
very welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank all of you at home for watching this on Brattleboro TV. Yeah, thank you so much. Stay positive.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you,
Excellent.
Good. That's great. I want to figure out how I know you and find out what you're doing.
Now,
Okay.
where are your roots planted?
So I am rooted in Massachusetts.
Uh-huh.
So I live in Massachusetts, and
All right.
I travel all over the place. So again, like when I lost all that money on the plane, I was coming from Vegas. I was doing a conference out there where I delivered this same talk for a group of magicians. So at that particular conference, we were talking about how do we choose fascination even in our magic tricks, because magic doesn't always work out right. Sometimes we deal with difficult audience members, difficult clients, a trick doesn't work. How do we stick with it and not give up, instead build ourselves up? So yeah, I travel all over the place. I come here every month for the past few years now. Russ comes and fills
I'll be famous.
most of these, right? And so it's, yeah, so I all over the place. But yeah, I grew up in Massachusetts, and
BrattleboroTV.org.
I like to think of this as my my home away from home, because I've been coming here for so long.
Oh,
Make new friends.
wait, how often you say you come?
I come every month, so I've been. It's usually either the first or second Friday of the month is when I'm here.
Oh,
Yeah. So my next one, actually, I do have next one already scheduled. Let's see what the schedule says. Oh, also on that card that you have on the website, #positivity.com.
oh,
That's my company site. So if you go onto that website, there's a calendar of events. So it says where my next event is going to be.
Else doing it.
But I have the next one scheduled here for December 6th, so the first Friday of the month. So I'll be here. We'll be diving more deeper into this topic. So my main umbrella topic is positivity. What can we do to bring more positivity in our lives? Because again, a lot of people think of positivity as rose-colored glasses,
Oh, that was my grandson.
like being that eternal Pollyanna in the negative sense. But really, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that goes into this. So
All right,
my big
thanks.
thing is positivity helps us be more resilient in the face of life's challenges. The first step in my model is fascination, having this positive mindset. Not getting frustrated, but being fascinated, being curious to find other solutions. Another one is knowing who you are.
And where do you get the
Having this clarity, and a lot of times we think about it as having your why, like why are you doing this? But it's more like they think it's more doing, like why am I a carpenter? Why I'm a videographer? You know, why am I a teacher? Why am I a police officer? They think about doing, but it's really more regardless of what you're doing. Who are you? And how can you express yourself no matter what your profession is? So that's knowing who you are. And then the last one, of course, is relationships. Who we surround ourselves with. And how are we investing in those relationships? How are other people investing in their relationships with us so that we can be more resilient by surrounding ourselves with a positive community? So those are the three big topics within this topic. So, yeah.